It is freezing cold outside. I'm sitting here in all of my NFL football gear. It is the Monday after Veterans Day. So that can only mean it's time to do our World Cup preview because we all know that this is the time of year that the World Cup normally gets played. Who are we kidding? That's right, ladies and gentlemen. If you can hear my voice or see my face, you know I'm Mike, and it is time once again for the worst 120 minutes or so in all of sports. That's right, it is the Too Many Guys Soccer Show, and we will be on and affecting your eyes and ears a lot more often in the coming weeks as we gear up to start our World Cup coverage, with the game starting and coming thick and fast beginning this Sunday when Ecuador takes on the host Qatar. Yes, this makes all kinds of sense, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I think nothing's more common than ending your league season for a week and giving the players absolutely zero tune-up games before the start of probably the biggest tournament of their lives that's taking place at a country with little to no footballing history. And all we're seeing in the lead up to this tournament is the history of FIFA corruption. So that's actually been quite enjoyable. If you haven't seen it, Netflix has a documentary on basically the 2015 FIFA scandal. It's a 4-part series. I am through 2.5 episodes already, and I can't wait to finish it. I'll probably finish it tomorrow. But again, it's a lot of things that tell us what we already knew, but it's great to see anything that's been given some dramatic flair and put to television, so I don't have to read all the books that all the interviewees have published over the years. But so that seems to be the gist of this World Cup, is everything that's wrong with these large international tournaments. I think we're seeing how much FIFA and the International Olympic Committee have in common.
Like you said, though, we have covered this extensively. We knew that the bidding process was corrupt, so corrupt, in fact, that it created an FBI investigation that ultimately led to charges, and Sepp Blatter, Michel Platini, and a bunch of others in the FIFA hierarchy being forced to step down. The only problem with this is we're well over 8 years, almost over a decade on from this initial bidding process, which we knew was corrupt at the time. And Gianni Infantino, who came in with the promises of cleaning up a corrupt FIFA organization, never thought once about putting this to a review. To say, you know, hey, maybe this isn't what we want to do. And despite all the pressure from the various leagues, human rights organizations, confederations, high profile throughout the world, FIFA has done a great job of turning themselves into the proverbial pretzel to make sure that this World Cup goes off. And, you know, the human rights abuses for the migrant workers have been documented. That information is out there if you seek to find it. The tens and hundreds of thousands that were shipped in, the masses that died, you know, the masses that worked in conditions that could only be called at their most charitable modern day slavery. You know, the stance of the Qataris over LGBTQ issues, involving, you know, the denial of homosexual activity and the threats of arrest, the various sponsors backing out, you know, all of that is well documented. And all of that is there for the offing for anyone who chooses to know about it. Now, my question is going to be, you know, how much of this is going to be brought to light during the coverage of the World Cup? We can talk about it. The players can talk about it. So what are we going to see? Because These sorts of issues have been there for the majority of the World Cups that I can recall since 2006, right? I know Germany's not perfect, but it is an industrialized Western nation.
Mhm,
Uh, um, and that was the 2006 World Cup.
mhm.
We could have talked about the racial um, disparities that still continue to plague South Africa, even though we are more than a generation removed from the era of apartheid. We could have talked about the poverty and the issues surrounding Brazil in 2014 and just the corruption and everything that went along with that one, had they
Yeah.
chosen to do that.
And we could have just taken a carbon copy of what they were talking about with the Sochi Olympics to discuss the Russia World Cup because it was essentially the same thing. Yeah, and it's the light that's been shed on this really isn't that bright because it's all as you've been pointing out. This is all very much above board. I just think the difference I've noticed with this World Cup as opposed to previous tournaments is if you just look at the general news feed of what's happening, you do not see really anything about the actual games that are about to be played. All of the stories are surrounding corruption, human rights abuses, and as well as the inability of FIFA to really make this a welcoming experience. Because in fact, FIFA is basically putting their foot in their mouth because what they're doing by the stance they're taking of saying to the players and to the fans to just go and enjoy the game and don't protest and don't have any demonstrations. All that's doing is causing more and more and more demonstrations. So I mean, I think it's just highlighting the lack of actual um, thought and genuine consideration of what is the whole situation moving forward going to be, and the putting it, pulling an ostrich and putting your head in the ground. I mean, yeah, they're talking about the location of where they're going to be putting beer, the fact that they have not actually been developed fully their infrastructure for how they're going to host fans, and now you have these, it looks like District 9. You have these tent cities set up, and you're going to have fans from opposing rival nations that are going to be essentially right next to each other, and they're not going to have any sort of issue at all moving forward, is because that's what we're led to believe. It's just I think the magnitude of hosting something like a World Cup is so much different than Qatar's experience of hosting things like the World Championships in track, which is essentially a week-long event, which is done with a lot of individual athletes that come and go based on their event. It's not a month-long process that's intended to invite over 1 million people to a country where the entire tournament is going to be taking place in an area about the size of DC to Baltimore.
Now,
So it's definitely going to be. I mean, I hate to say it's failed before it started, but it feels like that's what's coming.
but then are we going to know about it? Because one of the groups that I was pointing out that I feel is most complicit in how this happens is the media and the broadcast companies who will be broadcast. If they choose to show us the rot underneath the gilded cover, then it's there. It's there to be seen. It's there.
Yeah,
If they choose,
but they can't even cover it anymore. Yeah.
Well, like I just said, you did it in Brazil, you did it in South Africa, you did it in Russia. And in Russia and Brazil, you did it twice because you had to do both the World Cup and the Olympics. So if they choose and we will see what they want us to see. And I just wonder once the game starts if the focus is going to be less off of what is wrong and they'll take a page out of the FIFA manual and say, hey, this is, we're just gonna focus on the games. So lurking in the background, we've got our good friend, Stat Boy Byron Rob, who will actually be leaving for Qatar on Friday. So he is the perfect person to talk to about this because he'll actually be there. So Rob, what are you expecting to see?
Um, I will. So one of the things that I will tell you is I don't expect as many people in there as they initially anticipated. So a couple of reasons. Number one, there's still a lot of combinations available. The one of the things was there was an issue with They wouldn't have enough buildings and hotels and apartments and villas and all that good stuff. There are various levels of like fandom. I mean, like accommodations from like kind of like a makeshift tent sort of or storage unit, which is very dorm room esque, to lavish hotels. There's still a lot available. A lot. Cruise ships are available still. And I think a big reason is because, Stead, you touched on it. The tournament is in a small area. No, you don't have to fly to the stadium. Everything's drivable or with the public transportation. And thus, because of that, you have people going to 5, 7, 15, up to 22 games for this whole trip. So if all those people are buying, one person buying tickets for all those games, that means less people can go and buy tickets, right? So they're just it. So I think the issue of like, well, we're going to invite all these people, and at one point they were saying that you only if you got a ticket and accommodations can you get into the country. But now they're saying, like, look, you can actually bring people who don't have a ticket. They just have to have a hire card, which is the fan ID to get into Qatar, your visa to get in during the World Cup. And then at one point, you don't even need that if you're not going to a game after a certain point. So along the way, they have been relaxing the rules a bit here and there. And also it's still like in flux. They haven't really hosted a tournament like this. I know they've done the Arab Cup and they've done a couple of stadiums, but this is the World Cup. This is like the creme de la creme of sporting events, especially for one sport event. I know the Olympics are one thing. So it's gonna be, and also the mass transit system hasn't been tested. So the mass transit, there's two different options. They had the gold package, which is like very lavish or whatever, but it's more roomy. They got rid of those so they could put it into regular trains so it could hold more people. They have not tested a lot of the stuff yet.
Well, they couldn't test it as well because no one ever uses the transit system they already have. It's bare. So no one even uses it. So they have no ability to even test if their infrastructure even works because they don't have no people who even use the facilities that they even have. And the ticket sales, like there's tons of tickets available, tons of tickets. I mean, we could hop on a plane right now and easily get, as you said, Rob, we can get 10 to 15 tickets right now. And FIFA has really bent over backwards to accommodate this World Cup taking place in Qatar. And then not without the forethought to see that this was doomed from the beginning. I mean, you can't play soccer in the summertime when it's 107 degrees outside every day, but also you can't put the entire world leagues on pause to play in November. I mean, we were already talking about the injury pileups, but that's not even that big of a deal when you see all the other issues that they're currently having, because like it or not, this country has had an advantage in preparing for this World Cup because they got their bid so significantly earlier than most countries get their bid, and they're still not really ready.
No. I think the thing though that we're going to see out of this is if it fails as we have anticipated, and it is the lowest rated, if there are
1978 Argentina happening all over again,
then we'll have an excuse not to do this again.
Yeah, right? See that.
Small countries, they can always lean back and say this. If it's successful, then FIFA can stick a feather in their cap and say, look what we pulled off.
Well, remember, this World Cup is the last one before they expand the fields.
Right.
And then now it's going to be a lot of joint bids, right? So, for example, you're going to get a lot of joint bids like in South America, in Europe, which can make sense.
You're going to see an entire like Caribbean bid.
You will see, but the question is, I don't think you'll see a Caribbean bid at any point in time.
No, I'm not. I mean, I'm not saying that like it's going to happen, but you're going to see things like that. You're going to see like 25 countries that are small will come together to see if they can put something together. They're going to try.
They're going to try. I don't think it's 25 countries like the Caribbean or even like Malaysia or the Philippines that would do it. But
Norwegian,
I could see Scandinavia doing it, but even more so than that, I could see the Gulf states doing it, the smaller ones, the Emirates, Oman, like they did for the T20 World Cup not too long ago. So that would be the more, but if this does not work, then we will not see that.
And if you want to know if it's working or not, stay tuned to this podcast. I will be providing reports via Stead or Mike over here, what it's like on the ground, the chaos is going on. I will be now remember, I will provide as much honesty as I can because I need to make it back home.
That's what I was gonna say. I was just thinking that too. I wanted to be like, listen, before let's not say too much negativity about the country of Qatar.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a lovely place to go.
Yes, it's a lovely it's a lovely place. I already have a couple of nice reservations booked at some fancy restaurants. I got a cabana already booked at a beach club. I'm balling it out a little bit. I'm going to enjoy it. I mean, I'm lucky I can do it, but at the end of the day, I'll do my best to provide what I see on the ground. And for all we know, look, at the end of the day, what you guys see on TV is going to be different from what I see. The vibes are going to be different. I'm going to actually talk to people of all different countries. Yeah. And, they're used to, we're used to a certain way of doing things. They maybe are not used to a certain way of doing things. And this could be fantastic from their point of view. So we shall see.
All right. Well, let's get on to what is actually going to go on the field. And we're going to start our coverage with following our draw, our first guy, and the group of death. Los, how goes it this evening?
The group of death, I don't know. Maybe, could be, who knows? I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I survived my first week in the new job, and so it's working out well. To learning the little intricacies of the job and all of that. So after 1 week, I'd say it's so far so good.
All right, so you drew Group B. It is the only group in the World Cup where each one of the teams is currently ranked in the FIFA top 20. Now, that is the England, Wales, Ireland, Iran, and of course, the United States.
And that's why we think it's the group of death, because we're the FIFA rankings somehow come into play. You know what? The FIFA rankings really don't mean a whole lot, except everyone follows them. That's why they seed everybody. But really, it's kind of just fabricated numbers, kind of like how they do I don't know, FIFA rankings.
So we're going to go through each one of the groups, and we'll start with this one, looking at a couple of things, and we'll save your predictions on who you think is going to come out on top until the end. But as we get started, can you give us a team that you think might surprise or overperform out of those four?
Well, in Group B, we have Iran, England, USA, and Wales. Of the, of course, there's the obvious favorite. Everyone has England coming out on top, and they may very, very well do that. So the question is, what happens with the other three? And I think if Sardar Azmoun and Mehdi Taremi are able to put together what they were able to put together in qualifying for Iran, they might just surprise a lot of people. They might not be the stellar dweller in Group B as everyone predicts them to be. So let's see, because it's questionable because Azmoun has a calf injury. He plays for Leverkusen, but he has a calf injury. So whether or not he's going to be totally fit is another story. But Taremi had 20 goals for Porto last season. So he's formidable up front. So that's one thing I would watch out for is Iran's attack.
All right. Can you tell us a team that you think might disappoint?
Well, emotionally, my USA team, gosh, they look so, I don't know how to describe it, except they just don't gel well together when they put them together for these different recent qualification matches and the exhibitions, the friendlies. They don't gel. They aren't gelling. And that's really a sad thing because I want them to do well. I mean, Weston McKennie, when he's on his game, he's one of the better creative midfielders in the game, and he's good in the air. But he hasn't really been the spark that they really need. Gio Reyna, can he be healthy? because he's an exciting player to watch. He's only 19 or 20 years old, so that's great. But if he's injured, he can't really do anything to help the team. Tyler Adams, they look to him for leadership at age 23. That's saying something. Well, it's a young team anyway, but they look to him as he's sometimes captain of the team. But if you're going to be captain of the team, you got to be better than getting a second yellow and getting a send off, in a match in your regular season matches, like he did with Leeds just in his last match versus Tottenham. So that's the team that, for me, have so much angst and so much anxiety. What am I going to do with these guys? I'm hoping that they play well, and I hope they represent us well, because it is a team, one of the teams that I support. So there we are.
Can you give us a player or two? You already said Asmoon and Mehdi Tarami. Can you give us anybody else who you think might be the breakout players from this group? Guys that we don't know quite yet, or people who we know who are going to be launched onto the world stage as a result of their play?
Well, if you want to stick with Iran for one, there's one more player that stands out. The guy who plays for Brentford, it's Saman Ghoddos, 29-year-old midfielder. He's got 33 caps, but he's a really solid midfielder. And Duran, they like to play a lot of defense, but he can be pretty good on the attack as well. So those that would be someone I would look out for. And maybe one that isn't as rare, or I would say one unknown to this football crowd, but Gareth Bale. I mean, the dude is like 33, 108 caps for Wales, 40 goals in his career for Wales. He probably can't play the entire match, but does he have to? When you saw what he did in the MLS Cup for LAFC, coming on in extra time and making a play happen within the first 2 minutes that he's on the field, and then scoring the game-tying goal to take it to penalty kicks before time ran out in extra time. The guy can make a play, and he's good for a play. So if they need him for like the last 20 minutes, they might put him on there to see what might happen, and that might be what tips the tables for Wales in this World Cup. We'll see.
All right, so give us your predictions. How do you think this group is going to shake out in the end?
Okay, am I thinking with my head or with my heart?
You can give us whichever one you prefer and let us make assumptions.
Okay. All right. Number one of the group is going to be England. And number two of the group is going to be USA. Number three is going to be Iran. Number four is going to be Wales.
All right, so I'm assuming that's you thinking with your heart.
Yes, because I don't think USA is going to make second. I really think Wales probably has a better shot, to be honest. Even though I have listed four in my initial, I think they have the best shot. But I tell you what, if Iran is firing on all cylinders, especially up front, watch out. These guys know how to put the ball in the back of the net, and that's the name of the game.
So the last time the U.S. played Wales, it was a 0-0 draw. In fact, the Welsh have never actually scored on the U.S., albeit it is a small sample size of 2 games. This is the first one up for the U.S. How important is that game to Greg Berhalter and the chances for the U.S. to advance?
Well, it's a very, very small window, isn't it? You have 3 matches to prove your mettle and see whether or not you can go ahead and move on. And we've seen in World Cups past, 5 or 6 points get you through the next round. That means you can't just draw all your matches and expect to go through. You've got to win at least 1 and draw 2 in order to have a chance to move on. So we have to win 1. Can we win 1? Sure, we can. We can beat teams, but it depends on what USA team shows up and plays on the field. That's really what it boils down to. And I'm hopeful that Pulisic, McKennie, Reyna, Adams, and crew, I hope they can all get their act together, gel, and play cohesively and make us look good as a nation when it comes time for us to go play in this World Cup.
Before we get to your ultimate predictions on the outcome of the World Cup, one more question about this. This group, along with Group A, have the least amount of time in between the cessation of league play and the start of the World Cup. In fact, almost by a week. The Group A and B will play on Sunday and Monday, whereas you look at groups G and H, and they don't play their first game until Friday, giving them almost a full week extra to prepare. How much will the shorter amount of run-up time of prep time with team play into how these games shake out, at least to start?
Well, I think everyone's going to look a little bit shaky to start, but once everybody gets in their groove, you'll start seeing who the better players are and who the better teams are. It'll be fine. Everyone's pretty much in the group that they're having the same situation. They're having to face the same situation with regards to rest time. So it's kind of like an even playing field there, if you want to think of it as far as that's concerned. And you want my ultimate prediction, who I think is going to win?
Yeah,
I'm thinking that Messi finally brings it home. Argentina finally wins a World Cup for Messi. That's, of course, that could be me talking my heart, but some people say, hey, he's talking with his head. So,
hey, listen, if you go by the betting odds, they are the second or third favorites, depending on what you read. And given that they're coming off of a Copa America championship, it's not too much of a stretch to think that this Argentinian team could get that cup done.
One of the downsides, though, one of the guys who likes to feed from the midfield and feed Messi is Gio Lo Celso, and he's out. He's having surgery done on his quadricep, so he's not going to participate in this World Cup. So I'm not certain who's going to pick up that gap in the midfield. On the upside, Cuti Romero is available for Argentina on defense. So we'll see how that goes.
All right, Los, thanks for coming on and joining us and giving us a little bit of a preview of Group B of the World Cup. And we'll get you back on early next week after
Rock
these
and
games
roll.
have been played to talk a little bit more about it.
All right, buddies.
We are going to move from Group B, of course, to Group A. And in a group that features Qatar, Ecuador, Senegal, and the Netherlands, we brought on the Scotsman who has no actual connection to any one of those countries to talk about it. Celtic Cam, how goes it, my good friend?
It's going well, thank you.
I know. This was a rough one to get.
Yeah.
If Group B is the one that most of us wanted to cover, this, I think, was the one that most of us wanted to avoid. You do have the hosts. You have the best team in Africa. You have an up-and-coming Dutch team and a surprise package, if you will, from South America. So what do you make of this group? Who do you think is the team that's most likely to surprise us out of these four?
Yeah, so I mean, looking at the squads that have, become available, unfortunately, Ecuador only became available a few hours ago, so I still have some work to do looking into them. The Netherlands have a really good track record of progressing, so I think they're obvious, but I think in terms of surprise team, I think Ecuador would be a surprise team here. Qatar, I've been looking at them. That situation is another one, though, where we have a team where a lot of players play together with each other on similar teams and similar leagues. And we've seen that in previous competitions, especially the Euros, where these small teams were able to progress mainly because, they all know each other. They've all played either against or with each other, sort of thing. So I think there is going to be some surprises with Qatar. They play the first game with Ecuador next week, I believe. And I do think the first two games in this group are going to be really interesting. We've got the two powerhouses, Netherlands and Senegal, and Qatar and Ecuador. And as you mentioned, looking at the Ecuadorian team, it is a bit of a mix-up from what we've seen in the past. So, I think Qatar is going to be a surprising team to watch.
The last time that we had an opportunity of any sort, really, to see Qatar in a and by that I mean we Americans, uh, was last summer, the summer of 2021, actually, in the Gold Cup, where they made a run to the semifinals, and the U.S., the eventual champions, were only able to get a 1-0 win. It seems like they've really sunk some effort into playing together as a team, getting them as much team time together. In fact, I think this unit has played more together over the course of the last couple of years than any other team, being as how Rob pointed out to me, they only come from 6 different teams. Given the short run up in terms of prep time that I was talking about with Los, how much of an advantage is that going to play for them going up against Ecuador in that first match, a team that's played a lot together versus a team that probably hasn't had as much time together?
I think it's a huge advantage. I mean, if you stack on the fact that, Qatar is, the team is playing in their home nation for the World Cup, paired with the fact that they do have, they are bonded very well as a national team, in terms of playing, I think it's going to be a massive advantage. Where it could be tough for them is, this Ecuadorian team, I think, is a little bit younger. They might be a little more fit than some of these other guys, but I still think I think it's going to be a harder game for Ecuador, surprisingly enough, than it is going to be for Qatar. Again, I really have this belief that teams that play regularly together or know each other from the same league do have a pretty kind of sublying advantage. And again, we saw that a lot during the Euros, as I said, and I think we could see it here in this situation again.
So tell us a team that you think might underperform a little bit.
I think Senegal is on the verge of potentially underperforming, especially, Sadio Mane is a big part of the team. He's a huge part of the team, with the injury worries, things like that. I think that could really that could hurt them. Now, that's not to say that they don't have a good team behind that. They've got people like Kulabi, they've got Mendy in goal, things like that. They do have some really quality players there. But I mean, anyone on this podcast knows if you have Sadio Mane on the field, you have a massive advantage, I think. And it's just going to be interesting to see, how often he's playing, if he's going to be okay for the whole, the competition. But I think if he goes out early, I think Senegal could really be at risk of underperforming.
Could you give us a couple of players who you think might impress, ones who we may not necessarily know about, but we will by the end of the group stage, or even somebody who could really, really increase their international profile by their play in this part of the tournament?
Yeah, I think so. When I was going through the list, there were a few. I mean, some people might know Ismail Assar. I think he's a Wolverhampton Wolves player, and he's been doing decent there. I think internationally, he might not be as known as people think he is, but I think we could see some interesting things from him. As someone just said, Frimpong, who I've got a special place in my heart. He was at Celtic for a while. I think he's going to be a really, really good player. Down the line, I think he's got a lot of potential. He's playing at Leverkusen right now. But I think, him being on the stage at such a young age for the World Cup, I think is a massive, really, really, really big advantage for him. And I think we're going to see some really, really interesting some work from him. I think those for me are the two big ones I'm going to be really watching.
Another one that comes to mind is Cody Gakpo, the young forward from the Dutch team, who just seems to be on everybody's radar right now as a potential forward. He's drawn interest from Real Madrid, Manchester City, Manchester United, PSG. So here he was almost signed by Manchester United over the summer. So here's an opportunity, I think, for somebody like him to really put their name on there. And I'm going to add in one of my favorites, the old man at the heart of the Senegalese defense. I think that he's going to remind everybody that he's still a halfway decent player, and that's Kalidou Koulibaly, who, as much as Sadio Mane is the heartbeat of that team, he's been that rock that has kept them and at the center of that team. I think that he gets a chance to remind people, you know what, I actually really am good. You may have forgotten, I actually really am good. All right, how do you see this group shaking out?
Okay, so I'm gonna say the Netherlands are gonna top it. The Netherlands have a great history of advancing, especially in fourth, looking at data from the past 10 years. And then I think it's gonna be Senegal. And then I think Qatar and Ecuador in that order.
All right, and so who do you see winning the whole entire thing?
Oh God. I mean, looking at the teams, I mean, we all know that Brazil is just absolutely stacked. However, we've seen in the past teams that are absolutely stacked don't necessarily always win it. I did like the Argentina call out, but I think I'm stuck between France and Brazil. I'm gonna go France. I'm gonna go France.
Okay, well, we've got Low saying Argentina, we've got Celtic Cam saying France. If you look at the betting lines, they are going off as the two favorites right now. So, Cam, thanks a lot for giving us your insight on Group A. We'll get you back early next week after the first round of games to talk a little bit more about them.
Sounds good. Go Birds.
All right, yeah, go Birds. It's that time. He's here.
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah. It's pretty bad when I got the USA hanging up over my shoulder and I'm still wearing this one. So we'll see what happens with this one.
All right. Well, so we're going to get you and our newest guy, Bert the Brazilian, to come on. Bert, how goes it this evening?
It's going well. It's going well. I'm excited to be on this with Coach G and with the boys.
I got to admit, I love the juxtaposition of G's genius with the mellow, laid-back vibe that Bert gives off. It's just a perfect juxtaposition, and I think it's going to do well.
And then I have to play into my my World Cup winner. I don't know. I might have to go with my boy. So we'll see, man. We'll see. See how this goes.
Well, you guys got one of those premier groups, if you will. The defending champions, France, Denmark, the darlings of Euro 2021-ish, Australia. Always got to look out for the lads from down under, and the Tunisians. So, G, I'm going to start with you. Give me a team that you think might overperform and surprise a little bit in this group, on these group stages.
Overperform. I don't know if you actually had a chance to take at these look at these teams, especially the rosters. It really is from top to bottom. You get exactly what you get. Name me one person on Tunisia that plays in the Premier League.
I don't think there is one.
Perfect. So they're going to come in last right there. So right there, this is so easy. Then we have Australia. So you got some Kiwis, some guys down there, not Kiwis, but some koalas down there, just happy to be part of the show, to be really honest. So when I kind of do my prediction with this group, I looked at what kind of club teams they play at, and I looked at Tunisia. Could not tell you one. It was most of it was Arabic. A couple in Kuwait, a couple in Saudi Arabia. Then I looked at Australia. Most of it is going to be either in Australia or the very second or third tier leagues in Europe. All right, cool, getting better, kind of thing. Then we got Denmark, and Denmark, like you said, is kind of that darling team that there's one or two big names out there, but most of them have played on either mid-level, if not high-level club teams all throughout Europe. Then you got France, and France, top to bottom, every single player is on the top 2, top 3 teams of every single league. It really is going to be that simple. France, Denmark is 1 and 2. So overperform, I really don't know. Sometimes it's tough when you have too much A++ players on your team to see how well this team is going to mesh. So they might underperform, but also they might overperform. It matters who kind of shows up with that. who's steady. You know Denmark's going to come with the exact B plus A minus team, and they're going to go kind of that transition. They're going to put that bus right back in defense when it's time to transition. Eriksson will launch something to a quick forward who's going to score. They're going to win 1-0. So, you know, Denmark is very kind of on paper just like that. Shut up, dogs. Sorry about that. Then Australia, you know, they're just going to put another shrimp on the barbie, you know, maybe learn some about, you know, the Qatar's, you know, life, maybe learn about, I don't know, some oil. I don't know what the heck. But, you know, Australia's there just to get some money for their federal team. In Tunisia, they're squeaked in. They won 2 out of the 5 games in the Africa Gold Cup. So when you're squeaking into a tournament and they only have 2 World Cup wins ever, and the last one was it about 4 years ago against Panama, it's top to bottom so easy. So underperform, overperform. I like to see Denmark to do both of those. I think France is too much. Australia sucks, and Tunisia just go. So.
All right. I think he told us who's going to both underperform and overperform. Bert.
Very efficient.
Yes.
I got no dinner right now, man. I don't know. I'm just talking so fast. My bad.
No worries. Bert, the French come in as defending champions. They're coming in as the second team. They're ones that I think actually could underperform, but I wanted to get your thoughts on them. This is a team, remember, they do not look like the team that won the World Cup. No Paul Pogba injured, no Blaise Matuidi aged out of the team, no Olivier Giroud replaced by Karim Benzema, no N'Golo Kante injured, Samuel Umtiti replaced. Oh, by the way, those were all guys who started that World Cup final against Croatia. Bert, how hard is it to replace such a significant portion of your starting lineup while getting 4 years older in the process?
For sure. I mean, I think injury is going to be their bug, and I think that as much as they can score goals, they're going to give up goals as well. So they're going to basically be just trying to score the last goal type of thing, in my opinion. It's a shame. I was really looking forward to seeing what Pogba was going to do, because I love him, honestly. But now it seems like the weight of the world is on Mbappe's shoulders, most likely, right, as the leader of the attack and all of that. So I don't know. I'm curious to see. I think they'll make probably very deep. They'll definitely go deep because, I mean, let's be real. It's France. They're stacked. They're good. They have skills. They're the defending champs. But I don't think they're going to go to the finals.
All right, G, give us some people who may not be on the French team that we should look out for, who we may not know.
I'm sorry, what was that question?
Give us some players who you think we may want to know about, who you think could increase their stature as a result of this.
You know, like being an Arsenal, fan through and through, William Saliba, sorry, is he's having a phenomenal fixture right now with Arsenal. He's in top form. I want to see him in the next level. I want to see what he can do on the international level, playing on the international team. I want to see if Varane can kind of give him a little help along the way. But he seems like right now he's in top form. So I would love to see him prosper, but don't know how much time he is going to have. He's still a young player. Most of these guys are young. So it's going to be really hard to kind of see who's really going to stand up. But again, I'm kind of biased right now. I would like to see Coleman, maybe Kingsley Coleman from Byron, maybe him step up. He's about that age. He's been kind of knocking on that door for the last, about 5, 6, 7 years of just trying to be that superstar. So it might be his time with Mbappe going forward, maybe scoring the goals. I think their defense is really solid right now, a bunch of youngsters. So maybe some naiveness is always a good thing sometimes when it comes to World Cup, especially just international play. You have no idea what you're doing. And maybe in the World Cup, that might be a good thing for this young defense. Good midfield, good forwards. So I really don't see them having an issue. So I would like to see Saliba kind of coming through, see how much he kind of grows during this time.
All right. Bert, how do you see this group shaking out top to bottom?
I think pretty much the same as Coach G, honestly. I think I don't know. I think Australia, for some reason, might show up to one of the games we don't expect them to show up to and pull off a weird tie somewhere and mess things up for someone. But other than that, I think it's pretty much exactly as Coach G said: France, Denmark, and then Australia and Tunisia.
All right, Jake, and then I'll go back to Bert. Give us how you see this tournament shaking out overall. Who comes out on top for you?
All right, so it's kind of a coin flip. I was kind of like with Cam a little bit. I'm like, oh man, is it France? Because they're in Group D. But now I got a new boy over here. It's got Brazil, Brazil, Brazil. We're in the same group. So I made a coin flip. We're going Brazil. We're going to go Brazil in the finals. I'm not saying against France, but let's go with Brazil. And if they win, I'll buy a uniform. So in the honor of my new boy and in this victory. So I think France looks strong from top to bottom. Even major players are coming off the bench, which is always a great thing to have. So when you're getting some high-class players coming off the bench, your France will never really dip. So it's really hard to put them anywhere less than second. So let's put them at champions.
All right, Bert, I know where this is going. You can't choose anybody else. Your family would disown you. You wouldn't be able to go home. You got to pick Brazil. So why Brazil? Why are they going to get past this jinx that seems to have been on them for the last 22 years, finally pick up that 6th World Cup? The rest of the world is catching up. It's shocking to think that there's a generation of Brazilians who don't believe that Brazil can win a World Cup.
It's a shame. It's almost like they forgot their history, and forgot what they came from. But I'm not one of those, I'll tell you. No, this is the year. It's funny because I actually watched the Redeem Team documentary the other day, and this is what they are to me this year. This is our Redeem Team, right? I'm personally still hurting from 2 World Cups ago, and I'm just like, all right, y'all need to come and lay the smack it down on any and everybody that comes across your way to remind the world who we are and what we're about. And I'm over here wearing my Roberto Carlos jersey here just to represent one of my favorite players ever. But I think honestly the reason why this is our year is because we have been steady up until this point, to the point where in the past I felt like we were almost a little too confident and cocky, but it doesn't seem like we're feeling that way right now. We're just kind of ready. And from my perspective looking in, right, the boys are just ready to go and step up.
All right, so who is the key to Brazil's success in this particular tournament? Bert.
I mean, as always, all eyes are going to be on Neymar for sure. But I think there's 2 other people who might be key, and Thiago Silva is a big key, I think, right? As he's going to be kind of an anchor back there. And then personally, kind of my new sort of favorite is Paqueta. I think if he can show up and produce between him and potentially Fred somewhere there, right? That those 2 are kind of like my sort of, I don't want to say wild cards, but I think if they play strong when they're on the field, then the rest of the group is going to step up with them and play even stronger. Coach G, what do you think?
Oh man, that Fred comment kind of threw a little doozy for me just because I've been watching him on Man U, and I have not been impressed by Fred. So I know on the Brazilian team he does play a hell of a lot better, but Man U, it just doesn't fit his style. So when you threw that out there, I'm like, oh man. I'm a big defender, kind of a goalie guy. So Allison is my guy to kind of watch out for. With the experience with Liverpool in the last several years of success, he's just going to kind of put that team on the back when he needs to. So minus that glorious beard that he just shaved off, I think Allison is kind of the unspoken MVP of the season. I'm sorry, of the team. I think goalies always are, but I think under there's too many good guys. Allison might be kind of overlooked a little bit, but to control a defense and to again, shut down an offense that has some major star powers going against them in the final, semifinal. You need to have that kind of very experienced kind of keeper, kind of direct everyone where he needs to be. So I'm gonna throw Allison out there for my number 1 guy.
My last question on Brazil, Bert, is this: it has been ages since we saw the Hoga Bonita, that trademark flair that made Brazil Brazil. They kind of abandoned that both internationally and domestically in favor of a more pragmatic style of football. if you had told me a generation ago that a Brazilian team would go into a tournament and potentially be playing two holding midfielders, I'd have laughed at you. What are the chances that at some point in this tournament we see Brazil be Brazil, even if it is just for a little bit?
You know, I've been actually thinking about this a lot, and I think in some ways they need to show a little bit of that a couple of minutes each half of each game in order to succeed, right? Because it's part of the beauty of their game, and it's kind of a little bit of what those guys up front are about. Even though they're trying to hold it in, they on this stage they're not going to really be able to, I don't think. And once that ball starts pinging around, it's just going to come out, and it's what I predict going to be a beautiful thing.
All right, thanks a lot, gentlemen. We'll get you back on later on next week after these games have been played so that we can talk a little bit more about Group D. Thanks a lot, and we'll catch up with you.
Still
Well,
waiting on Coach Matt.
yeah, I was going to say
but-
we've got 3 groups down, but that was going that's going quick.
We're a little ahead of schedule. We're doing fine. We're doing fine on time.
I have actually managed to keep the trains running somewhat
Yeah,
on
yeah,
time today. I
No,
am
it's been
patting
going great.
myself on the back, but this gives us a chance to breathe, reflect a little bit. Yes, a little zen. I gotta say, I can see the arguments for the 3 teams that each one of them has presented. You know, Brazil being the prohibitive favorites coming in, they're just absolutely stacked. But as Cam pointed out, you know, France has a lot going for them. They are the defending champs. They have world-class players who are in the peak form right now, coming off the bench. But, you know, the last tournament in South America was won by Argentina. They're the ones who've got that win under their belt. I don't know, Stead.
Yeah, this
Arguments can be made.
I'm sorry. Like I can't discount anything anyone has said as far as who's going to win so far. I think this one is wide open. I mean, I could conceivably see, you know, you can see Netherlands making a run. I feel like you can. That team knows how to play international ball. They have a lot of like under the radar guys that aren't necessarily making big splashes on the world stage outside of Van Dijk, but they still got Thibaut Courtois. I mean, the guy's like 6.
Courtois
8.
plays for Belgium.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I meant to say I'm switching over to Belgium too. I don't think Belgium can win. But what I meant to say though was that the Netherlands and Belgium, they seem to be in that same area where you could see them getting to a semifinal or even a final, but you can't necessarily see them winning. And they each have key players that can do something. Memphis for the Netherlands is playing well. He's in good form right now. So
I'm
just saying. But you got to throw Portugal in there. You got to throw them in there. I think you do. You got to throw Portugal in there. Portugal can draw their way to a final. You've seen them do it before. So I don't know, man. I think this one's wide open.
We can't, yes, Rob, forget about the Germans. I mean, this is a team.
I can't pick Germany. I just can't. I'm sorry.
I
don't see it. I don't see it for Germany. I don't see
it. You see it for Portugal, but you don't see it for Germany.
I don't know why. For some reason, I'm just not feeling. I'm not really feeling Germany right now.
Jamal Musiala is the better offensive player than anybody in Portugal's front line, including Ronaldo. Including Ronaldo.
Kid's got milk on his breath, man. Come on.
I know his mom just literally stopped driving him to the training ground like 8 months ago, right? But still, the guy could ball, right?
He can ball. He can ball.
I
don't know, man. I just think it's wide open. I do.
No, it is a wide open World Cup, and I think it's the beauty of it. But you know, World Cups are weird. Like
they are weird.
You know, like I know England had the first game against Iran. if Iran play a low block, is England going to get points out of that? Because Harry Kane's biggest thing has been scoring goals off the counter. And he's really good at it, by the way, because he has good midfielder and he has Son and everything. But let's just say England get a draw, and then all of a sudden they lose to the U.S. by a miracle or whatever. Can England make it out? I mean, with all their Premier League pedigree, they like to brag about the Premier League, the best league in the world, and then they've won one intercontinental competition. So then you have what I'm trying to say is the powerhouses that we know of, weird things can happen in games you don't expect it, and one's enough.
Don't sleep on the fact that the last few defending World Cup champions have failed to actually make it out of the group stage. Germany struggled after their win. Spain struggled after their win. So going back, the last few,
France got bounced after their win.
Yeah, so the last couple of teams, even in 2006, Brazil did make it out of the group stage, but they did not look.
They looked bad. Yeah, they did.
They looked bad. So
no, the last defending champion that looked worth anything was actually Brazil in '98.
Yeah,
that's kind of the last time you saw that. Yeah.
So there is this running curse of that. So we're going to get back on our schedule. We're going to invite our good friend Coach Matt in, and he is going to tell us all about Bert's favorite group, Group G. This is a fun one. Matt, you got Brazil, you got Serbia, you got Switzerland, and you got Cameroon.
Yeah, a really fun thing about this group is that it's actually, if you swap in Cameroon for Costa Rica, it's the exact same group of 2018, which I found really very interesting. So these teams will know each other a bit, at least three of them. But yeah, where would you like me to start? I did my research.
So when you're looking at these four teams, who do you think's going to be the surprise package, the team that might overperform for us?
That's actually really tough because I feel we do have obviously a clear favorite with Brazil, and then it's going to be amongst these other three between Serbia, Switzerland. They actually have a history. There was a big game in the 2018 World Cup where Switzerland came back. Xhaka and Shaqiri scored, and they're both of I believe of Armenian descent. And there was a kind of a big.
I think they're Albanian descent.
Albanian descent.
No, actually,
I think one's Albanian, one is
Kosovo.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, well, they have some history with Serbia, and they put up some symbols that actually got them into kind of trouble when they scored against Serbia. So it'll be an interesting game to see if Serbia can come back. Cameroon is also very interesting. They have a very potent attack. While they do have Rob's boy Choupo-Moting, their top scorer is actually this guy. Last name is Abubakar. He was playing for Porto for a while. He has 33 goals for them. And yeah, they had the best attack in AFCON. They had the most goals, but their defense is a little weak. They conceded in every single one of their group games, and even to the point also in their third place game, they had to do an amazing comeback against Burkina Faso in the third place game where they went down 3-0. So their defense is a bit weak, but they have a lot of great wingers, and they love to kind of put the ball into the box, and Abubakar kind of puts it in for them. Serbia, again, very interesting in the sense that I learned this today that Mitrovic is their all-time top leading scorer. He has 50 goals and he's 28. He got to 50 goals in less games than Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi. So he's really good. They love using wingbacks and they cross in a lot. They also have Vahilovic, who's also a massive talent for Uve. Their weakness is, and G will love this, is goalkeeper. In 20 odd games that their coach has coached Serbia for, they've used 6 different goalkeepers. So it's kind of a toss-up who that's going to be. And then finally, Switzerland. I think we know them. They always seem to do well in tournaments. They always seem to either get out of the group stage or make it really really hard for teams. If I have a gun to my head, I would say maybe, I don't know, maybe Brazil and Switzerland, just because Switzerland always seems to get out. But what I want to see is Brazil and Cameroon. I think that would be just so awesome to see them do. And Cameroon is the youngest team in the group, but not by much. Most of these teams are all within a couple months of each other in terms of average age. So,
All right. Who do you think's most likely to disappoint out of those four?
I would say Switzerland. I could see them just putting in a stinker. I don't know what it is. I just don't get a good read on them. I just find them kind of average. I mean, Jacques is playing very well right now, but Shaqiri's old, and I don't really know too much about players coming through for them that that kind of pop out. I feel like Rodriguez a few years ago, was a right back or left back that was coming up, but he's not young anymore. I don't really see too many players coming through for them and shining. So I think it's going to be between Cameroon and Serbia. I think that game is going to be the key of who comes out overall. Yeah.
Switzerland have a young player, Bril Mbolo, who's actually a Cameroonian-born player who plays striker for them. So that'll be an interesting
Very
matchup.
interesting. That is so cool. Yeah, I did not make that connection. I did not know he was Cameroonian. I knew Mbolo. He was a hot prospect a while ago, but I hadn't heard anything from him since then. So that's really interesting.
He's only 25, but he's actually from Yaoundé, and
cool.
They moved to France when he was very young, and then eventually settled in Switzerland. But he chose Switzerland over France and Cameroon as a younger player when he was getting his international call-ups. He'll be one of the leaders of their attack, but there's that one.
One thing to note too, really quick, is that Brentford's Mbeumo actually just recently started declared that he was going to represent Cameroon. He was with the French youth teams all the way through, but just started playing in the friendlies in September for the first time ever for Cameroon. So he's going to be there too. The Cameroon's attack is absolutely stacked, especially compared to all the other teams in from AFCON. So I really want Cameroon to go through, but their defense is really weak, and a lot of the standard stable, pretty much the Switzerlands, they really do seem to pounce on that of we may not be super exciting, but we're not going to give up stupid goals out at the back, and we will bore you to death in our games and just make it tough for you. So
can you give us a couple of players who you see starring in that group, who could increase their international profile as a result of this?
Increase it? Just pick any Brazil winger, pretty much. There's so many young wingers they have from, you and I know Anthony, but they also have Rodrigo. They have who comes off the bench a lot for Real Madrid, Vinicius Jr. Richarlison could step up. Brazil always really, that's the one thing they always seem to be lacking, is that big striker who's gonna put them up, since El Fenomeno retired. So he could pop up. Again, I think Cameroonian players, I'm trying to look up his name really quick. I think Mitrovic could honestly come to another level. We on the pod love Mitrovic, and that's a big thanks to Chelsea Mike. He always tuned us in while he was in the lower leagues banging it in. I did not know that he was doing so well for Serbia. A player named Toko Akambi for Cameroon. He is a left-footed player, but he plays inverted, and so he cuts in. It's either whatever he plays. Yes, he plays. He cuts in from the wing of his off foot, and he scores a lot. So him and Abubakar just absolutely dominated stats in AFCON. Both of them, led the tournament in shots, shots on target and XG. So yeah, I think he is a name to look out for as well. Yeah.
Just to get this in for Celtic Cam and Chelsea Mike, I've got to mention the Oliviers for Cameroon.
Okay.
Messieurs Mbizo and Nitcham. Olivier Nitcham was a midfielder who used to play for Celtic before moving on to Swansea City. I
There
like
we
him.
go. Love that.
5'11", but absolute unit of a person at 5'11", about 176, 180 pounds, absolute physical, just everything you'd want from kind of a big old mid. And Mbizo plays defender for the Philadelphia Union, so one of the Union representatives who will be heading over and playing in the World Cup. So give us your version of how this whole thing shakes out.
Sure. I think the group is dominated by Brazil. In qualifying, they scored 40 goals and only conceded 5. So, people were all talking about their weaknesses, which they do have weakness at wing back. But I think especially in this group, they will see things through. And then I think it is really a showdown between who's gonna come in second. If Cameroon can stabilize themselves, and they do like to dominate possession, if they can stabilize themselves, they can absolutely win. They have or come in second. They have the ability to do that. And then so I'm just gonna, again, my predictions are always awful, as we know. I'm gonna go Brazil, Cameroon, and then Serbia, and then the bottom of the group will be Switzerland. And one little thing too for the Liverpool people, Cameroon is coached by Rigobert Song, who played for them. He played about 30 games for them between 1999 and 2000. And I like it too because, again, a lot of times with the African teams, you don't see people from that country coaching their team, especially in the major tournaments. It'll always be some French guy or some white French international or someone from Europe that takes the reins, and it's kind of really really nice to see that someone who's also a legend. I think he might have the most caps for Cameroon as well, being their coach, and so he obviously really understands his team, the players, the culture. So if you're looking for a team that you didn't really know too much about, that you wanted to pull for, that might be an underdog, I think Cameroon is your team.
All right, so how do you see the tournament shaking out overall?
I have and my boy Bert's gonna love this. I have Brazil winning this thing. I didn't know this, that Argentina is kind of their boogie team, but the earliest that they will play Argentina, it would be in the semifinals. But I think Brazil wins the whole thing. I think this tournament might actually be full of upsets, though, just because of when it is happening in the season. It is just such a random time. I think a lot of players that may not technically be fully injured, they're going to feel the wear of being in the middle of the season. We all see it in the Christmas season for the Premier League. Is like we see all these really random surprise results. So, like a bottom team beating a top team, or because of the midweek games. I think we're going to see a lot of that during this World Cup. I think we're going to see a lot more upsets. I think we're not going to see too many teams dominating the groups. We might unfortunately see something similar to Euro 2016 when Portugal won it, when it was just like a lot of draws. I don't think it's going to be the most exciting World Cup we've ever seen, unless we see some, crazy games where it's like 4-3 or something like that. But I think Brazil is the strongest team. I think they handle the pressure. They have the experienced coach, and for the first time, I think that they're the strongest they've been since 2002 and should win it.
All right, Matt, thanks a lot for coming on and joining us. We'll get you back on at the end of the week next week when these games have been played.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right, and so we're going to go from one group at the tail end of this to another, and one Matt to another, and bring in Professor Matt to talk to us about Group H, featuring Portugal, Ghana, Uruguay, and South Korea. Matt, there are 17 players who play their football in Africa, and it looks like most of them ended up on the Ghanaian national team.
Yeah, their squad was only finalized today, and I found out two things. First of all, there is a team in Ghana called Hearts of Oak, which I just
Yes.
was unaware of that. And the other is much like Senegal, they have a African manager in Otto Addo. So that's quite cool. In terms of, well, we'll talk a little bit about this. Their squad itself, they're a mystery. It's new. This is a very new Ghanaian squad, but new doesn't necessarily mean you're good. It just means you're new.
All right, so this is one of those ones where you look at it, it may not have the combined world rankings of Group A, but you could see this one shaking out a lot of different ways. And as I go through this, even I'm struggling to figure out what I think. For me, it's hard to identify teams that may overperform or underperform because it's hard to figure out just who's going to perform to whatever expectation. But I'll leave that to you to take a stab at. Who do you think is likely to be the surprise package from this particular group?
If there is a surprise package, I think it's South Korea, particularly if Son plays some. We'll see about that. They have a lot of European-based players. Son goes without question. He Chen at Mainz, Jae Woo Young at Freiburg, the young central defender from Napoli. More about him in a little bit. And a guy who I know and love, Hang Wee Boom, who played in MLS, but also was the victim of probably the stupidest verbal assault by a sports journalist of all time when he was playing in Russia. He was his first day on the job and asked, "Do your countrymen still eat dogs?" So Paulo Benento's been the manager there for a while. They looked convincing enough in qualifying. I like the midfield. I think the defense is actually going to be a lot better than people think it is. I'm not certain who their center forward really is. I look at those names and I'm not thrilled. Maybe He Chan can play a false nine. I know he's played it before. I sort of wish, God, he must be in his 40s, if they still had that guy, Wook, that they called the Wookie, that 6'2" dude. But they have the makings if things go right, because they play Ghana in the second match. I think they should have enough to beat Ghana. That first match against Uruguay, I think, is critical. If they can get anything from that, all of a sudden this group gets very, very, very interesting.
So who do you think is the most likely team to kind of underperform and disappoint?
This is a weird one because, especially when I do my predictions, but I think it's Portugal. And I think it's Portugal in a lot of the usual ways. Start with the manager, Fernando Santos. His tactics are fossilized. He is the anti-football of anti-football. And you have this team that is loaded with talent. Yet I'm almost positive that he can't fully unlock that talent. There's some questions. I think their fullbacks are okay, but we saw during the Euros, if you have guys that play direct, a la the Germans, you can get at them some. But center back has to be a major concern, right? It's Diaz, Pepe, who's literally my age, and then literally guys. There's injuries, right? As potent as their attack is, they're missing Diego Jota, who I think his inclusion could help spell Ronaldo. And there's also like a weird omission, and I know he's not having a great season at PSG. But Renato Sanchez, whenever he puts on that Portugal shirt, looks better. And Portugal plays better. We saw this at the Euros. He gives them a little something extra. I probably would have taken him simply as another option. And right, I mean, again, beyond Santos's tactics selection, if you're given this team, what's your starting 11? Because even at the goalkeeper position, I think there's a question: who's the number one? I think it's Patricio because he's trusted him, but it's not clear cut. So if there's a team in this group that I think underperforms, it's going to be Portugal because, well, I'll get to this in a little bit. I think they get past the group stage, but I think they do it in the most Santos sort of underperforming, underwhelming way possible.
I'm not 100% sure that you can do what Santos wants to do and get out of this. Everybody talks about how he drew his way to a Euros, how Greece drew their ways to a Euros. Let's keep in mind that the Euros and the World Cup are two completely different tournaments. Number one. Number two, you could draw your way to a Euros because when Portugal did it, they just needed to get out of the group stage, and only what was 6 teams went home.
And remember, that was the weird bracket in that Euros. Like, I deluded myself into thinking Poland had a shot at getting into the final, right? Because you looked at that side of the bracket and you said, Belgium, do I believe in this? And anything's possible.
And if they're going to go in with the fossilized tactics, I think his resistance to attacking football might play very much into the hands of a team like Ghana, who may not necessarily be the stoutest team defensively. If he's not going to put pressure on them and invite them to come forward, the Ghanaians still have enough going forward, as do certainly the South Koreans. With last time I checked, they had this guy named Son who was pretty good at attacking. Just like I think the Uruguayans still have one dude named Darwin Nunez and another one named what's his name? Oh, Suarez. He might like to bite people at World Cups, but he can still score a goal when he needs to.
I'm on the same page with you, and I think it's Ghana can do it because Ghana can also park the bus and maybe hit you on the counterattack. In regards to Uruguay, let's say they go 2-0 down. What's Santos's plan B? Because I don't think it exists. I honestly don't think it exists. And again, I don't think Ronaldo's going to kick up any kind of fuss because when he's with Portugal, he's 100% professional.
But it just seems like when he's with Portugal, any sort of dynamic that goes in between with him and some of the younger attackers like a Bruno Fernandes goes right out the window, and there's no connection, and there's still this way of, Bruno wanting to have more power to assert himself on that Portuguese team, but having to deal with this 600-pound gorilla in the room of a Ronaldo, and we don't know what their relationship is as teammates for Manchester United. We don't know if and how much, even if he's going to be a good citizen when he puts on that shirt, if and how much this issues that are domestically club-based are going to carry over. I agree with you. I think it's Portugal. If there's a team that will underperform in the group stage in that group, it's definitely them, because this is such a good group. It's easy for me to see them not even making it out of the group stage.
There is a possibility of that. And, you sort of took the words out of my mouth in terms of the Bruno Ronaldo dynamic. But here again, this is where sort of the injuries also come in. If you have Jota available off the bench, you can manage Ronaldo's minutes. I don't know if you can really do that. And, when you're that old and you're playing a full 90 with matches so bunched together, now granted, he's had plenty of rest, that does take its toll.
So give us a name or two of people who you think might be the standout players from this group, guys who we may not know, who we will know, people who we do know who will become more important.
4 really quickly, because I have one for each team. Portugal, I think the obvious one is Mateus Nunes. I think if they're going to do well and not miss Sanchez's contribution, he's my guy to do that. I wanted Liverpool to get him, to be honest with you. Good box to box ball carrying midfielder, just scratching his potential. Uruguay, I'm going to sound a bit like a homer, but this could be Darwin Nunez's, hey, I'm pretty goddamn good tournament. And Uruguay's kind of a team in transition. They're transitioning from that old Oscar Tabarez generation to this new Diego Alonso generation. And he's going to be the face of it, for better or for worse. South Korea, this guy's cool. Napoli defender Kim Min-jae, who I was made aware of 3 years ago when he was playing in the Chinese Super League. If South Korea gets out of the group, it's going to be, contributions from Son, but the defense is going to hold, and I think he can marshal it. And then, although I'm not expecting a lot out of Ghana, I really, really, really am looking forward to watching Kudus from Ajax. I really like this kid, and I think he's, one big tournament away from potentially a pretty big move. I like him a lot.
All right, how do you see this group shaking out?
This is going to sound weird considering the way we just bashed Portugal. I think Portugal topped the group, but again, in the most Santos, like with 5 points or something. That would not shock me. A win and 2 draws. I think Uruguay finished second, although it wouldn't shock me if South Korea does. But I think when I'm comparing those 2 teams with Uruguay, I think there are more, if we can borrow from Donald Rumsfeld, more knowns versus more of South Korea's unknowns. And then I think Ghana finishes 4th, but I don't think they're slouches. I think they actually are competitive in all 3 matches. It would not shock me if this group, like Portugal finishes on 5 and like Uruguay finishes on 4. And that's 1 and 2.
All right. And finally, give us a idea of who you think is going to be the champions of the whole tournament.
Uruguay over Germany 2-1 extra time. It's the
Wow.
Messi revenge tour.
Oh, Uruguay or Argentina?
Excuse me, Argentina.
Good deal.
Argentina 2, Germany 1, extra time. It's the Messi revenge tour.
All right. Thanks a lot, buddy. And we'll get you on next week after some of these games have been played. Take a look back at this particular group.
Take care, Mike.
All right. So, keeping things moving right along. Larry, how goes it, my friend?
Going well, boys. How we doing? I appreciate the change in schedule to accommodate my crazy life, carpooling young kids.
No worries, no worries, no worries, no worries, no worries. You managed to avoid Group A.
That's what I was happy about. It's I wanted nothing to do with Qatar, and I already had to do my own research on the teams that I got, but it was a little bit more of stuff I kind of knew myself, where Qatar would have been, or Group A would have been a lot more research.
All right, so you have Group E, Spain, Costa Rica, Rob's favorite, Germans, and Japan. There's quite a few unknowns in this group. Germany has had a bit of an up and down. Spain certainly has had their moments where they look great. They've also had them where they look bad. Uh, I know Japan has a number of players who play for Cam's Celtic team and absolutely ran right over the U.S. in one of their final World Cup qualifyings. And then there's Costa Rica. So who do you think's the team most likely to surprise us out of Group A?
Surprise? Well, I say I wouldn't be surprised, but things would have to fall in line, and it would kind of have to be a shock. Would be Japan. I mean, we kind of know Spain and Germany. Yeah, Germany's had their ups and downs. You know, whenever you don't have some perennials that are not there with Royce, Hummels, Cruz this year, it's a little bit different. But you just look at the overall teams up and down. Spain and Germany are just too tough not to come out of this group, in my opinion. Again, Japan 14-1 to come out of the group. Wouldn't be surprised, kind of like I forget. I think like Coach Matt was just saying, Ghana's going to be in games, but isn't going to win them. That's kind of how I see Japan being. They might draw Germany, but they're going to lose to Spain, and they'll beat Costa Rica. I could see it. Spain 2-1, Germany 1-1-1, Japan 1-1-1, Costa Rica 0-3.
Remember, Japan did sneak into the round of 16 last time based on their fair play at the expense of Senegal. So this is a team that has managed to make up for certain attributes by disciplined play. They also have more players playing abroad than we're typically used to.
Quite a few players are Frankfurt, that are playing at a very high level.
You
mentioned Celtic.
Yeah, of course, Tomiyasu playing for Arsenal. Minamino, the former Liverpool player, the loanee. Daisen Maeda, who's the Celtic player. I believe the other one, Kubo, the famous midfielder. So yeah, they've got quite a few players. I wouldn't be at all surprised if they throw a bit of a spanner in the works.
They have a player in their midfield, Kamada, who I was kind of reading about. They just said he kind of runs that midfield. He's kind of one of the surprise, not the surprise, but he kind of is like the glue that kind of puts them all together. Pressing midfield, moves well without the ball. He could be a name that's bigger in Germany and obviously Japan right now that we could get to know his name a little bit more after and during this World Cup.
So who do you think's the team most likely to disappoint us during this one?
I mean, it's kind of a tough question. I mean, I'd say I could see Germany disappointing, just because they're Germany in the World Cup. I don't see them disappointing, but I could see them, and it would be more of a shock doing that. Costa Rica is just happy to be there. I know that they were there and they made it to the 16. What was it in 2018? Would they go?
Mm-hmm.
No, sorry, no, they didn't even advance in 18. They're just happy to be there again. I think to answer your question, probably Germany could be the disappointment. Will they? No.
You already mentioned the midfielder Kamada from Eintracht Frankfurt. Anybody else who you see being a player who we're going to learn about as out of this group?
Again, with the research that I did, I mean, there's going to be maybe a couple other players from Japan that we might not know of, but a lot of the Germany players we know of. I think Sane is going to have a big World Cup. He was left out in 18. He kind of feels like he needs some redemption with this one. He's playing at a high level. Musiala. I think that Spain is just going to be too tough. They're kind of a perfect mixture of their youngsters and their veterans right now. You got Pedri, Gavi, and then Fatih, or however you say his last name. I apologize. But then you got, Alba, Azpilicueta, and Busquets on the team. You got the teenagers and the almost 40 guys that the youngsters from Spain are just gonna, who don't know them, you're gonna know them even more. You know, we all know them because we follow, but coming out of La Liga, people are gonna know them more. So,
All right. So how do you see this group shaking out at the end of the group stage?
Spain and Germany coming out, Japan fighting, but coming up short, maybe even with a tiebreaker with Germany, depending on how they do against Spain. Costa Rica, they'll be fun to watch for a little bit, but they just park the bus too much, and it's not going to work against these, against these teams.
All right. So what do you think the overall tournament? Who do you think's coming out on top of this one?
I mean, it's going to be. I'd say it's either going to be Brazil or I love Belgium. I'm just rooting for them because my boy KDB. But like I kind of said before, this might be their last hurrah with the team they have before they kind of have to start reshuffling. But we'll see.
Mm-hmm. And we did not mean anything offensive by saying that we expected Japan to come up a little bit short. That was not intended to be racist.
I didn't say that. You guys did.
Yes. All right. Well, Larry, thanks a lot for coming on and joining us. We'll get you back on later to talk about the games in this group.
Thanks, boys.
All right. That's one I think is that Rob could be a instead could be a very, very interesting group. I'm not as high on Spain as a lot of people are. I remember them being from the Euros. Yeah, they advanced, but there was a lot of self-inflicted wounds.
There's no number 9. Who's a number 9 on Spain?
I don't know that they even have one.
Instead, your bike's there you go.
Stay I am one of the
top. Murata is up top right now.
Yeah. I know I'm one of the oldest guys on the show. I had my old guy moment by talking into the mute, but nearly 45, cut me some slack. But that's why I was saying that I think Ansu Fati is going to actually probably be emerge, because what you said, they don't have a number 9. I could see them taking a player of his stature and just going, okay, you're 20, you have no fear, go. And him potentially having a relatively decent cup. But I also, I am concerned a bit with Spain with this group as well. I think this group, Rob, you and Matt were saying that you can see Spain and Germany beating each other a lot, beating up each other, and one of those teams, whoever loses, doesn't come out of the cup. I could not agree with you more. And I can see Japan sneaking in there. I really could.
Okay, yet another racist anti-Japanese. Japan with the sneak attack.
Hey, look, I have Japanese family. They may be my step family, but I have Japanese family. I can say whatever I want. My little sister's half Japanese.
We are just, you know what? We are just stepping all up in it tonight. We just can't get.
That's true, because all these were completely unintentional. None of us actually meant to say any of this crap.
Maybe we should just not talk about this group, because this just seems to be the one.
The funny thing is, we're all quite supportive of the Japanese team. We all think they're going to do pretty well.
Rob, what are your expectations from your German team?
I think Germany's going to do well. I think I think you got players who are much more mature. You got like Joshua Kimmich, who is a man possessed in the midfield. Future captain Joshua Kimmich. I think they're going to do well. I think the problem with Germany is that they don't have like a fullback that like bombs the wings. And the problem was that they're probably going to play Nicolas Sula as a right back. Now, can he do the work? Yeah, but the problem is that like he's more of a center back. But then you got like what's going to happen is like I think Rudiger's is going to be, and Schlotterbeck are going to be like the starting center backs. And I know you got Thomas Muller there. I know, and he's always good for something, but he hasn't played much in the last few weeks. That's a big issue for them. But Jamal Bambi Musiala is a diamond who's about to shine bright for in outside of Germany. Finally going to see it. I think he's going to have a great tournament. Silky smooth on the ball. Just so much talent, humble as well. He's gonna have a tournament. He's gonna have the tournament. He's gonna be one of the top 3 players in the tournament. I think he's that good. I think if he does that, Germany go far because of him. And yeah, so I think they'll do well. I really do. And I think, like, I know Morata. I know Larry talked about Morata, number 9. But he's not in 9 per se. He's not like the in the Lewandowski, or should I say the Choupo-Moting form of a striker. But yeah, they're very young over there in Spain, so they easily could not advance out of here. I think Japan's really good in my opinion. And one last thing, major respect to Keylor Navas. Is probably his last World Cup. I will miss him and not miss him, but as a USA fan, but man, what he did in 2014 along with the other Costa Rica players, fantastic, man. So hope he does well and he has a good showing.
Yeah, there's a team. I think that golden generation peaked in 2014, and in between 2014 and 2018. Was their peak. Now, it's just a bridge too far for them. I think that it's going to be a long tournament, but great job on even getting there. Send them out with with one last trip through the World Cup.
Give him a juice box. Say thanks a lot.
Give
much respect though for Keylor Navas. Absolutely.
A Coke and a smile.
Yeah.
It's going to be a Coke, good, not a Budweiser, because it's hard to find apparently.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
That is true. Give him a good
a Shirley Temple.
Yeah.
with an umbrella.
Yeah.
So we got 2 groups left.
Yeah, we're just waiting for Chelsea Mike to pop in. We're a couple of minutes ahead of schedule, so we're doing well.
Well, yeah, we got Eves
and
coming up.
Is Eves next or Chelsea Mike next?
I think Eves is next. Okay. And then Chelsea Mike.
All right. So since we're waiting, and and you guys asked everybody else their favorite.
Mm-hmm.
I want to tell my favorite.
Hold up, Rob. Let me get my Rob line set up. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Rob.
All right. I'm sorry. Nobody is talking about the 2014 champs, Deutschland. All right, new blood. It's coming. I think it can sneak under the radar. There we go. Yeah. Matt, I know you're in the chat. But look, I'm confident in this group, man. I'm confident now. When I come back after this trip, they make it out the group. Man, I'm gonna hang my head in shame. Man, I think Hansi Flick, he's won every club trophy possible to win as a Bundesliga manager. I think he's gonna do well with his squad. Fully confident. I really am. I think they're going to do.
We've shown Germany no love on it.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, the image y'all remember from 2018 is Neymar rolling. The image from 2014 is 7-1. Which, sorry, Bert, you're not listening, but you might listen. But sorry, Bert, I'll be wearing the 7-1 shirt on my travel day. But then but all of a sudden Brazil's going to do it, right? So no, I'm sorry. No, I mean. Hugo Bonito is dead. They're gonna play 2 holding midfielders. It'll be weird. I do root for Vinicius Jr. By the way, Vinicius Jr. is just an amazing player, quality player. I mean, I can't. And look, it hurts me to say he plays for Real Madrid, but man, just what a player.
Yeah, I guess Vinicius is actually kind of like being that rival for everybody's in love with Mbappe, and it's kind of sad that Holland will not be able to feature with this type of tournament because this would be a good chance for him to shine as well internationally. But everyone's going to be looking at Mbappe. But I think by the end, I think people are going to be looking at Vinicius. I mean, that guy is phenomenal. And everyone knows he's phenomenal, but you still don't really see him much. And which is kind of surprising. But I think after this tournament, he's going to be the face of Brazilian football. It's not going to be Neymar anymore.
Yeah, no doubt. I fully agree. I mean, the problem with Neymar is he's rotting away at PSG.
Yeah, he is.
So
and he can't do anything right. Like I kind of feel for Neymar a little bit, I still don't like it. Yeah, I don't like his on-field antics. I don't like his flopping. I don't like his diving. He's almost as bad as the bald guy from the Netherlands. I've already forgotten his name, but it's frustrating though that I really feel like Neymar is just yes. Thank you, G. Aryan Robin. I really feel like though that Neymar off the field, like I have never seen a player scrutinized negatively the way he is. I mean, he's practically dehumanized sometimes, and it's a little sad. I do feel for him in that way a little bit. So yeah, and he scored 75 goals already for Brazil. So so that's where my little bit does come in. So it's hopefully. I mean, I'm not saying I'm rooting for him or anything like that, but hopefully with Vicinius being there and being another focal point for the Brazilian team, that some of that can kind of come off of him, because I don't think that's all entirely fair. I mean, the guy can't have an opinion without everybody jumping down his throat.
He invites it a little bit, like he leaves the club to hang out with his sister for her birthday.
Yeah,
like we're a little bit old for that.
Yeah.
Gents.
I get it. But, that's a very I'm gonna be a little somber for a minute, but like I get it. Like my sister passed away like 12 years ago. So I kind of like, okay, I kind of understand that. But yes, he does bring it on himself. He brings it on himself sometimes. But it will be good to see that. But I really think this World Cup though is a chance to see a huge shift in the players that we've all seen as great international players. I mean, we were talking about Uruguay earlier. Edson Cavani and Luis Suarez both have over like 120 caps, both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Ronaldo has 191 caps. And, you're seeing just a lot of these Messi's got 100 and some odd caps, so hopefully we can kind of get not get them out of there, but, let them have their final World Cup. Let's say have a nice, exciting tournament. But then when we move to the big tournament in 4 years, we'll have a new face of players. Norway will qualify this time because they're going to bring more. They're going to bring more teams from UEFA, and FIFA is going to do everything they can to make sure his butt is in the World Cup. They're going to make sure of that.
Yeah, no, I agree. This is going to be a World Cup where a lot of legends it's over for them. This their last hurrah, and then this is also a World Cup where you're going to see some of the new players shine bright on the world stage, like the Vinicius, for example. I mean, he look, it's funny. We're talking about him shining at a World Cup, but like he's won a Champions League already.
And he didn't just win the champion. It wasn't like Messi's first Champions League when he was kind of on the team. He actually physically was on the field and won the game. Yeah, absolutely. I know what you mean. You dare to say Vinicius was maybe not quite so dark. I mean, I'm just gonna say it. We've seen this happen over the years. That I remember when Yaya Toure was Yaya Toure. He was one of the best players in the world, and people were saying if he wasn't African, maybe he would get a little bit more props. You got to say that one of the same thing about Vinicius. If he looked more like Romario, who was also a darker skinned individual, but not, like Vinicius looks like he's from Cameroon or Nigeria. So maybe if he didn't look like that, maybe it might be a little bit different. Maybe if he looked like Mbappe, he looks a little bit more like me, a little fair skinned. It's true. The colorism is strong. It's really strong in football. It's really strong.
Yeah, no, most definitely. This World Cup, man, it's going to be something else.
It is going to be something else.
I mean, they're cramming all these games together. We haven't seen a World Cup where all the top leagues have had to play up to like the week before.
Right. And we've also never seen teams get no pre-game. Like the squad is picked, you get a warm-up game, and then the tournament starts. You're picking your squad. It's Monday. Who had Group A? That was Cam was telling us how he couldn't tell us too much about Ecuador yet because they hadn't had their squad yet.
No.
And the tournament starts on Saturday.
And Canada had a friendly with all MLSers for the most part. A couple of days ago. Germany play Oman in a friendly tomorrow, which is weird.
especially Oman.
Yeah,
Like,
Oman. In
come on.
Oman.
Germany's cutting them a fat check to come up and give them a warm-up game.
Yep. So and then like England doesn't get one. I mean, like they have players playing in Wales had players playing on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they get 1 week.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
Mm-hmm.
it's.
Yep.
I mean,
I think Tomiyasu met his team in Qatar.
yeah,
He just flew from England straight there.
So that's this timeline is I think part of the reason why I'm liking the chances of the U.S. even though like their top players are in Europe is because they're going to have fresher players,
right?
You know, so then Wales. I mean, Wales. I think like Daniel James. I think played on Sunday. So for Wales, I mean, he on Wales, but he didn't play for Wales. But anyways, you get my drift. But anyways, so yeah, this will be something to watch. I don't know how it's going to work out. I mean, and you know what's funny? It'll never happen again because it's been a tournament. This is it.
But that was what I was talking about earlier. I think that the teams that play later in groups G and H are going to have an advantage because they'll get, 10, 11 days together to train. Whereas when you factor in flights and things like that, the guys playing on Sunday, they didn't land until sometime Sunday night. They maybe got on a training pitch. You're going to have a couple of practices, and then it's game time. So, some of these teams are losing 4 full days that other teams are going to have to train together. Now, of course, in the group stage, it works the same pretty much for everybody except Qatar and Ecuador, who have a day less.
Yep. Which, by the way, the opening match was supposed to be like the second match of the day until Qatar realized, you know what, we're hosting the opening match, we should be a day by ourselves, and then moved it early, and all the people, the fans from Ecuador or who are supporting Ecuador, who probably bought flights already, had to go rechange the flight so they could make this game.
All right, so let's take a look, at Group A. If Yves is Group C. If Yves is able to join us, then he will. But Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Poland. This is one of those groups. They're going to play on the third-ish official day of the tournament. So these games will kick off on Tuesday. Argentina, we've already talked about.
Yeah.
Prohibitive.
That's pretty much a done deal.
Saudi Arabia is an interesting one because so many of their players, all of their players, play domestically.
Yes, but also all of their players play for the same team.
Yes.
So if you look at it, I mean, when you go through their roster, it's Al Ahly or Al Hilal, and that's basically it. There's an Al Shabaab, and they got a couple of guys. They got 3. And Al Nasser's got some, but like it's kind of what Cam was saying about Qatar. But also remember when Spain won in 2010, they had like 6 guys from Real Madrid and 7 guys from Barcelona. So their starting lineup outside of David Villa was like all just from those 2 teams. So there is an advantage there. There is an advantage there, and we've seen Saudi Arabia play successfully in this tournament. I'm not saying that they got out there and got to the knockout stages, but you've seen them play competitively in the group stage. It could actually cause some problems. So when you take away Argentina, you're looking at Saudi Arabia, Mexico, Poland. Mexico, I mean, you talk about a team that can disappoint. It's Mexico. They can disappoint. And I mean, Mexico was sort of that. You look at the best teams never win a World Cup. It was always, at least growing up for me, it was France and it was the Netherlands. And then it became, now it's like the Netherlands and maybe Belgium, because Belgium's had some success in the past. But it's been like Netherlands was the team that's great, but it's never going to actually win. And then outside of that area, you had Mexico. Mexico was the North American team for basically the 20th century. It was Mexico. And they can shoot themselves in the foot so many times. This team has great athletes. They have, they come from competitive league that has a long history. Now, of course, you have to deal with what you have to deal with when it comes to, Mexican soccer administration, but that's a team that can easily finish second. That's a team that can easily lose to Saudi Arabia and finish fourth.
So I'm going to get Professor Matt on. I think he's still hanging on in the background. Matt, you are the guy who knows as much about the Polish national team as anybody I know. Talk to me about Poland.
Goalkeeping is solid, good, safe hands in Szczesny. The defense should be good. If Kamel Glick plays, our defense holds. If he doesn't play, it doesn't. The midfield is kind of a mess. Krakowiak he's a decent player, but he lacks discipline. He's the midfield Dejan Lovren. Bilic, former Arsenal man, made the squad, which is interesting. Talent, but unrealized talent. They have played better since Czeslaw Minichevich has taken over as manager. But it's going to be tough. I mean, it's that opening match against Mexico. If they can get anything against Mexico, I think they have a decent shot of getting out of the group. But Mexico not making the round of 16 in my lifetime is something unprecedented, or damn near so. It's going to be tough. Lewandowski's Lewandowski, but what made him truly great, and Rob will appreciate this, at Bayern was he was Batman, and he had not one, not two, not three. He had like 4 Robins. If Poland's going to get out of the group, they need at least 1, if not 2, Robins to support him. And the 2 obvious candidates are Piotr Zielinski from Napoli, who's having a very good year, and Sebastian Szymanski, who I saw, in the Russian league, which he outgrew very quickly, who's having a pretty decent season at Feyenoord. If 1 or 2 of them contributes, I am cautiously optimistic about Poland, but being a fan of the Polish national team and fully embracing Eastern European optimism, which is, well, it's not that shitty. I can also see them finishing anywhere between 2nd and 4th.
So going back to Mexico, some interesting choices made there. I thought Santiago Jimenez, the young striker from the Feyenoord, was gonna make the team. No room on the team for him. I thought Javier Chicharito Hernandez might make it. No room on there for him. Tato Martino making some interesting calls. Jimenez was probably the guy that I was most looking forward to seeing in this group, who I hadn't seen a lot of before Stead, but not going to get that opportunity. Now, I thought he could be one that could shine. So is there anybody on any of these teams that stands out to you as somebody who you're excited to watch?
I really hope Raul Jimenez can have a good tournament. I really do. I feel bad because his injury occurred against Arsenal. I feel bad. I do. That was a horrific injury. And you can't expect an attacking player, especially, to bounce back from something like that. Really hardly at all. But he's 31. This is probably his last World Cup. And people love Chucky Lozano, but I don't know. I would like to see Raul get a few goals, get 2 or 3, and play with some energy and just really, really enjoy himself out there. And I'm pulling for him. I'm pulling for him. And look, I know I'm not supposed to, being an American fan, but I have a soft spot for Mexico, and I always have. And I just got back from Mexico a week ago, and I had a great time down there. Lovely people. So I'm quietly kind of like hoping that he does well, and Mexico do well.
Yeah, you got Mexico is missing. Jimenez is actually still a little injured. Tecatito Corona won't make it. He's injured.
Yeah.
No room on the team for Javier Hernandez. No room on the team for Jimenez. Like I said, a lot of this does, Rob, fall on Irving Lozano. I mean, he's going to be he's going to be the man.
Yeah, he is. Chucky. The offense runs through him. I mean, you got Raul Jimenez, but it's Chucky Lozano all the way. I don't trust that midfield whatsoever. Andre Guardado is good, but Hector Herrera is still in the squad. Like Ache. Oh Jesus, he's 32, but man, he's done. He's retired to his paycheck collecting, MLS job in Houston. And I think the good thing about Tata Martino is I think he has a good squad. The problem is that this group is tough, man. Like, look, if you lose against Argentina, which they should lose against Argentina, which is the most popular game, by the way, of this entire group stage. All right, so I'm telling you right now, it's going to be held in the biggest stadium, and it's the most popular ticket possible to get. Okay, people are paying over $900 for a ticket. Okay, wow. But then then you got Poland. I mean, Professor Matt thinks the keeper solid. I don't think the keeper solid. I can't stand the Polish keeper, Szczesny. I can't. But he's right on point. It's Lewandowski, and then who's going to help him? And so, I think if nobody helps Lewandowski, Mexico gets out of this group. If someone comes to Lewandowski's rescue and gives him proper service, then Mexico's going to go out of this group, and it's not going to be pretty for Tata. Tata will be fired before he scans the passport.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm still going to say, we're talking about Argentina, we're talking about Poland, we're talking about Mexico. There's one team in that group whose players all play together, and there's one team in that group who has a climatic advantage because they're already acclimatized.
Sure, very true.
And that's Saudi Arabia.
And they played several international tournaments over their history. That's what I was saying, because if Mexico goes into the Argentina game with 0 points, that's bad. That's really bad for Mexico, because you don't want to have the pressure of having to beat Saudi Arabia or having to beat Argentina and beat Saudi Arabia, and essentially a home game for Saudi Arabia after they've already played 2 games. So you've been there for a while. Yes, Mexico might be a little acclimatized, but you're also starting to get a little fatigued. So I don't know. I don't really think that that's an easy way to end your tournament for Mexico, is to play against Saudi Arabia after Argentina. If you better not lay anything against Poland. If anybody has to come out of that gate hard, it's got to be Mexico. It's got to be Mexico.
All right.
They have to win that game.
So before we get on to Professor Mike, last one on this group, Stead, how do you see this group shaking out?
I see. Sadly, I mean, Mexico, I love you. I see Argentina, Poland, Mexico, Saudi Arabia. I do. That's how I see this coming out. I do, and I see Saudi Arabia and Mexico basically each getting a point. That's kind of how I see it.
Rob, how do you see this one ending?
It's Argentina, it's Poland, Mexico, and Saudi Arabia. And it's only Mexico because on a goal difference, and that's the only reason they're third. Yeah, that's it. Honestly, I think that's the way to approach it, because it's disappointing, because I would love for the U.S. and Mexico to meet up again in a knockout round for another 2-0. And I know a lot of friends of mine who root for Mexico, but I think they just didn't have the momentum going into this tournament. Like their Gold Cup was blah. The qualifying, the U.S. took it to them at home in qualifying, and they lost to the U.S. in Cincinnati. So yeah, I had no faith in Mexico to do well in this group. I'm sorry, and the only reason they even make it out is because, like I said before, Lewandowski is by himself, and that's it.
Yeah.
Last but not least, Professor Matt, give you a stab at this one. How do you see this one going?
Argentina first on the full 9 points. I'm really hesitant, but like I said, I think Poland goes through at number 2. It's highly I'm gonna go Saudi and Mexico. I think it's gonna be like group.
I can see it.
2008.
I don't think that's
Yeah,
that outlandish. I can see
I
that.
think Saudi gets pumped by Argentina and Poland, but I think it's going to be like 2018 where like they show up against Egypt, right? Yeah, I have a weird feeling they're going to get.
I do too.
This. Also, there is a possibility, even though I don't think he's going to be, and I know we're going to save this for another time, the Golden Boot guy. If Lewandowski can get service, going out of the group stage, I wouldn't be shocked if he's leading the way in Golden Boot. Only so much that I could see him almost doing an Oleg Salenko against Saudi Arabia and like I really can. Like he gets all of them in one match, and then he doesn't show up against Mexico and Argentina.
All right, so we're going to move on to our last group and welcome in Lower League Mike to tell us all about Group F, which features Belgium at the tail end of their golden generation, Canada at the start of theirs, Croatia, the defeated finalists, and this team from Morocco. So, Mike, this is an interesting one. I have some of my thoughts on this one, but give us a team that you think will overperform in this particular group.
Well, hi, Mike. And can I point out that between what I'm wearing and what you have in the back, we have literally every Eagles jersey ever produced on display right here with us tonight. Go Birds.
Yeah, but they're not going too far right now.
They just went down and got a touchdown. That's Come on. Have faith. It's the Commanders. Stead, come back. Let me make fun of you.
No, we're not. Yeah, we'll probably go before fall.
Yeah, so Group H. I mean, here's my overall just kind of general feeling on Group H. Right? This is the kind
but
of
you're not covering Group H, you're covering Group F.
Group F. Sorry. Here's my overall thoughts on Group F. This is the kind of group that could end up where it's 2 games in and every team is stuck on 2 points. Right? There's a lot of questions. I think the obvious answer to who's going to come out of Group H are Belgium and Croatia.
But who do you think is going to surprise the most?
No, I mean, but that's the question, right? So Morocco's a strong team. I mean, you're looking at Hakim Ziyech, Hakimi, Banu from Sevilla. Like, Morocco have a lot of really good players, and they actually breezed through their CAF qualifiers undefeated. And in the ultimate qualification round, they drew away and won big at home. They made it through Africa pretty easily. At the same time, Canada made it through CONCACAF pretty easily. Canada scored more goals in CONCACAF than any other team. They also conceded fewer goals than any other team. So at the same time, the obvious pick to win the group is Belgium. However, I just listen to some ages, right? You want to talk about their attack, Michael? Let me tell you about Kevin De Bruyne, Romelu Lukaku, Eden Hazard. All names you know, right? Great players, legends. Well, Lukaku is in the second half of 29, but other than that, they're all over 30. And so is Thibaut Courtois. And so is Axel Witsel. And so is Jan Vertonghen. Jan Vertonghen is 35. And Adderweireld. Witsel and Adderweireld are 33. So they're back. Like, you're looking at your mid-30s. Belgium's golden generation, when we talk, we've been talking tournament after tournament on this show about how Belgium's golden generation is fading. The leaves on their petals are starting to droop. They're starting to get brown around the edges. It's now or never for Belgium. But does being old cost them points? And this group, I really think, is the most evenly matched of the tournament, Group F. Croatia, Luka Modric you're looking at, Mateo Kovacic, Kramaric, and Jasko Guardiol, who's an emerging star. Croatia has more of a balance of youth and being old. And Croatia just always seems to move on in tourneys. They were runners up in the last tournament. They're proven tournament performers. They always get out of the group. And so I think Croatia gets out of the group. And the question is really who goes with them. And if you're not picking Belgium, who are you picking? Canada, younger. They've got, stars like Alphonso Davies, who plays at Munich, and Jonathan David, who's at Lille, but not much more than that. They're only 42nd in the FIFA ratings, which is way behind Mexico and the United States, but they did way better than Mexico and the United States in their qualifying. And so I think that in the World Cup, if you just surprise in one match, you've made a big impact on the tournament. And I think Canada can. And Morocco. So, what are you looking at when you're looking at this group? The big game, Belgium, Croatia, also means that Canada is going to play Morocco the same day. And, who has what points? I don't know. Like, this is when I got this group, when we did our draw, I thought it was kind of an easy assignment, but now looking more deeply into it, I think there's going to be a lot of surprises. And like I mentioned at my lead up, it's the kind of thing where going into the third match day, it's 1 point apiece from everybody's first two games. It wouldn't surprise me.
So ultimately, you're feeling like it's Belgium and Croatia. Tournament experience gets them over the hump.
I do. And to me, I think if there's going to be someone who surprises, it's probably going to be Morocco. Like I mentioned, Morocco has guys who and Ziyech hasn't been doing it for Chelsea, but I think Hakim Ziyech's problem at Chelsea, as a Chelsea supporter, is that he's checked out of Chelsea. He's a good player. And I think that the depth of their squad is better than Canada. I think if there's gonna be a surprise, it's everybody's gonna say Belgium's old because they are, and I mean to have to play a very so here's the thing that's weird about this group, right? So Belgium has to play Croatia, who are proven tournament competitors, and that's who they're going to play in the last match. But they've got Canada, who are young upstart and are very sneaky good. And then you've got Morocco, who's got a load of talent that goes through the Champions League, who are, I think, sort of under the radar because they haven't really won any big African tournaments in a while. But the talent they have is better than what you think. So, there's a big, it's a big dynamic thing. I think at the end of the day, I will say this. I think Croatia goes through, most certainly. They've just got a tournament formula. They know who they are. They've got a mix of youth and experience and everything. I'm not saying they win the group, but I mean, if I was betting on anything in this group, I would bet for Croatia to go through. Who goes through with them? I mean, I would not be shocked if Canada or Morocco went. I think Morocco has a little bit more talent. But Belgium has everybody. They've got Kevin De Bruyne, and are you going to bet against that? No. So I think it's Belgium, Croatia, but man, I'm not really happy about saying that.
All right. So how do you think that, so who do you think are some of the standout players that we're going to watch?
Well, I mean, let's go for the old men, right? We're in the old men division with Belgium. I mean, Kevin De Bruyne, right? Who should you look out for whenever he's on a pitch? The answer is Kevin De Bruyne. Thibaut Courtois, off in Spain now, but still very good. I mean, he's the kind of player who could really have a breakout tournament as a goaltender, make himself like an Ollie Kahn. And if Belgium goes on a deep run, I think they're going to rely on Courtois because, as I've mentioned, their back is so old. They're like us old, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't be out there running. And so I think Courtois is going to have a lot of really good saves. Alphonso Davies, take a look at him for Canada. He's a great player. You don't go from Canada to Munich if you're not fantastic. And watch Hakim Ziyech. Like I mentioned, Hakim Ziyech is the kind of guy who lit it up at Ajax, has not been as successful at Chelsea, but has had moments. I think he's out of that whole Chelsea situation where they have 50 wingers and not enough spaces, not enough games to play to put them all out there. He gets to be the man here at Morocco. And, don't be surprised if, take the lid off Hakim Ziyech. Hey, it turns out he can play.
All right. So real quick before we get out of here, who do you think ultimately ends up winning the tournament?
So whenever the tournament goes to kind of weird places, it's usually Brazil. And I think it's going to be Brazil. So in the Argentina versus Brazil debate, I'm a lifelong Argentina person, but I mean, Brazil's kind of got everything everywhere all the time. They've got two goalies who are the best in the world. It's
all right. So, gentlemen, that was a great World Cup preview. We got through all 8 of the groups. We've made our predictions. We've told you who we think might surprise, some players to watch out for, and who we think some of the disappointments are. So and we are all looking forward to a great World Cup beginning on Sunday. So first and foremost, before I forget, I want to wish a happy Veterans Day belated to Carlos Rosali. Instead, your father.
Yes.
Well,
and
so
you,
that-
our intrepid host.
Well, I had a job to do and I did it. We want to wish safe travels to Byron Robb, who will be departing on Friday.
Mhm.
Now, we got one more show on Thursday with Rob, where we get to go over our favorite, least favorite, and nightmarish kits amongst the 9,782 that will be featured during this upcoming World Cup.
I've downloaded 66 of them.
I literally think, based on the designs, that they're going to be changing kits at regular intervals about 4 times a game. But we'll do that, and then we'll send Rob off, and then next week begins our World Cup group stage coverage in earnest. So I want to thank each and every one of the guys for showing up today. Carlos, Rosali coming in, Celtic Cam, Bert the Brazilian, and Coach G, Coach Matt, Larry the insurance guy, Chelsea Mike, Professor Matt, of course, Byron Rob playing Stat Boy and giving us his feedback, and our producer with the most, Stead. So, gentlemen, I'm Mike, and for the Too Many Guys Soccer Show, we did all right this week, and we'll try and do better next time.